Hi, I'm Peter Bernstein, and you're watching Time to Connect with John Krychek.
Hey, Peter Bernstein, man, thank you so much for joining me on Time to Connect.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
I really appreciate it. I'm a big fan of your work. I've been looking forward to talking to you. As you can imagine, when I have guests on this podcast, I always immerse myself in their music for the day or two leading up to it, and it's been a joy listening to your stuff, man. I'm a big fan. It's beautiful, beautiful music. I love the What Comes Next record. I think that's probably my favorite, and I love the organ trio stuff you do with Larry and Bill, and we'll get into all that. I want to talk about all that. I want to talk to you about a couple of things, but maybe let's start with a little bit of a potted biography. I know that I know a little bit. I know you were born in New York. I know that you started piano at age 8 and switched to guitar at age 13. But maybe talk a little bit about that and tell us, what were you like as a kid?
Well, from what I can remember and what else I can gather, I always loved music. I remember that. I remember being taken with early on in school when they teach you about the instruments and they play you Peter and the Wolf and how each instrument represents a character. I remember loving music. And my parents told me later that my music teacher at the school told them that your kid really loves music and you should, do something, with it if he wants to play an instrument. So I was really into piano at that time. It was the mid 70s. It was like this kind of little ragtime revival. So the first music I remember really connecting to wanting to play was ragtime. Everybody was playing The Entertainer, and I was like checking out Scott Joplin rags and all that stuff. But I also remember like loving, the Jackson Five and falling asleep to their songs, and just loving music from. My parents had like a smattering of different kinds of records: Bob Dylan, the Beatles. They had some classical. They had some couple of jazz records. They had various things. Uh, so I just, grew up listening to stuff and really got taken with ragtime. Played a little, piano for a while, and then I was into that and listening to pop music and all that kind of stuff. And I heard some kids playing guitar, older kids at my school playing guitar, and that looked really fun. And it's like, wow, rock and roll is cool, and got into the blues and all that stuff. So I wanted to play guitar and just take some lessons. There was the assistant art teacher at my school used to bring her guitar in and play while we were doing our art classes and stuff. So she said she had a guitar for me to sell me and she could give me some lessons, just teach me the basic chords. And so that's it. I was into that and got into blues, rock, blues through rock, and then jazz kind of through the blues, and just started hearing different guitar players, being interested in the names, Django, Wes Montgomery, Charlie Christian, Kenny Burrell, Wes Montgomery. Who are these guys? Who's Pat Metheny, the young guy, and just wanted to check it out. So through the guitar, I got into jazz, and through jazz guitar, I got into the rest of jazz, and that world opened up for me. So
Yeah.
that's the story in a nutshell of just, my just interest in music. But I just always remember loving it, and nothing prodigy like at all. I was just into it, and just when I met some prodigies later on, in my college years, like Larry and Brad Meldau, then I was like, wow, these guys are really like natural. No wonder they sounded so great when they were 12, So.
Yeah.
But I was, just slow to develop. But those guys were nice to let me play with them, my peers, at that time when I was 15, 16. I first met with Goldings at a jazz camp at Rochester and Eastman School of Music in Rochester. We had a summer workshop there. That's where I met Gene Bernstein. It was just like I wanted to be around some other musicians. Like that was my goal. Going there, I don't have anyone to play with. I just listen to records, and so that was a life changing. A few weeks up there, meeting Gene Bernstein and of course Larry and this other guy Joey Cavacino, great saxophone player, and now he's like a hip hop producer. He's been doing that for 20 years now.
Yeah.
More. And so he turned me on to so much music back then, all this Ellington, and I just got into the world of jazz beyond jazz guitar. So,
You mentioned Kenny Burrell. He actually had a birthday yesterday, turned 92.
92. Yeah. Yeah, one
Time
of my
flies, man. So,
all
so
heroes.
yeah, that's right, man. It's true. Yeah, I turned 67 this year, and I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that. It's crazy. Uh, but it beats the alternative, right?
That's right. That's right.
So, unlike a lot of guys, you got into jazz pretty early then. I mean, and you mentioned ragtime on the piano and pretty early. A lot of folks I talked to kind of started their cutting their teeth on rock, and I know you probably played a little bit of that, but you got into jazz pretty early.
I was like, yeah, 14. I started really checking out what these
Hmm.
guys were about, but I couldn't play anything. I mean, 16, I guess that's when I went to the Eastman. I just started to be able to kind of follow the form and deal with some harmony sometimes, and
Hmm.
just trying to make sense of the language and the vocabulary of it, and learning more about harmony and all that stuff, how things worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I went to college my first freshman year of college. I was lucky to be able to go to Rutgers to study there for a year. I studied with Ted Dunbar. Kenny Barron was also there. Kevin Eubanks was teaching guitar there the first
Nice.
semester I was there. And I was just by that time I was like, okay, I got to transcribe. I got to learn what these guys are playing and
Yeah.
get into it.
Yeah, that's nice. And then you fairly soon after that met Jim Hall. How old were you when you met Jim?
I was about 20. Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
80, 88. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
What,
yeah, he was
what was
teaching at
that
the
like, man? Talk
school.
about that. Jim's one of my all-time favorites, and
Me
that must have
too.
been pretty amazing working with him.
Oh well, I was super lucky just because I knew Larry Goldings, and he started at the new school the first year that it was happening, and I ended up coming to the school a couple of years later, and by that time Jim was teaching there, and yeah, I know he was just teaching there because Arnie Lawrence probably just saw him in the neighborhood. Jim lived around the corner from where the new school was. Arnie probably saw him walking his dog and said, "Jim, you got to teach at my school." And Jim was not. I mean, he did some teaching, but he wasn't part of the jazz academic world at all. And I think he was just kind of like, I'll see what the kids are into. And then I think he met Larry and a couple other people, and was like, wow, there's some, it's good to be around. So he kind of got into it, and he started working. I think he worked on a book around that time, and he kind of put some ideas together. But he was very much of a not, academic type, learn these patterns kind of teacher. He was just
Mhm.
really like taught by play. He would accompany the students and just like, just he would blow our minds just the way he could accompany us and make us feel. I could just feel like the entire rhythm section playing with him. So that was the main thing, was the strength that he had, of course, and the subtlety. He wasn't, like it was just such a sensitive thing, but he was really pushing you, putting harmony behind you, rhythm. I mean, he just had an incredible feeling. So to play with him that was a revelation. How does he create that feeling?
Mhm.
Talking, about his teaching, he would just kind of say like, "I'm into this," and I try to play from one idea or just take one interval and improvise. He was really into like showing people what improvisation was about, as opposed to just like developing a bunch of licks.
Mhm.
He was like wanted exercises to break you from playing your normal stuff. So he would say, improvise with one idea, one interval, and just try to take that through an entire solo. So just things uh, that I think devices he used to be more compositional in his approach to improvisation, and
Mhm.
uh, things like that. So I remember about
Yeah.
his teaching, but just being around him was just great. Just the way he would teach you a tune, and yeah, he was incredible. And just to watch him play, of course, to see him make that sound up close, just the
Yeah.
touch he had on the instruments.
Incredible. And
Well,
I was going to ask you, a lot of times when you spend time around a maestro like that, a lot of the learning is probably tacit. But I was going to say, can you articulate really what you learned from him? But I guess you sort of pointed to that. Is that what you would say? Basically, improvisation.
yeah, he just had a unique approach to like getting people to think outside their own boxes that they've created for themselves, or in the process of creating. He just got you thinking about trying to compose and trying to develop your ideas, and that was his main thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to skip a lot. We'll come back, but you ended up playing a bunch of gigs with Sonny Rollins, which, wow.
Yeah, yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, his regular guitar player, I think, well, Bobby Broom had been playing with him for a while, and then he had some gigs, and there was some kind of thing. Bobby Broom left the band, and he got Russell Malone to fill in for some gigs, but there were some gigs that first summer when Russell started with him in 2010 that Russell couldn't make. So then he called me just to fill in for like 3 gigs in that summer. And then the next year, 2011, he asked me to just be in his band, play all the gigs in his band. He didn't have that. He would go out for like 2 weeks and play 4 gigs or something a few times. I think I ended up doing like 30 gigs over the course of a couple of years with him. Not that many concerts, but just being around him was quite an experience, and I was just so grateful to have that experience, just to be around him and to get to play some with him and try to comp for him. Be around him and Bob Cranshaw too was just really, it was special, I never got over just like, oh my God, that's Sonny Rollins over there. Like, it's like seeing some, Shakespeare or some, like it's just like a character from history, it's just like so responsible for what I think is great, know.
Yeah.
So
have you read the
Yeah, I started it. It's huge. I did start it. Yeah, I talked to Hayden Levy a little bit about my time with him. I guess he was asking everybody that he could. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting, because I hear it's very, very detailed.
It's 715 pages.
Yeah, I have it. It's a month. I can't take it on the road with me because it's too big. But I'm reading it at home.
I actually just interviewed him this week, so he was fun to talk to, and everything's in that book, man. Lovano said to me, "It's all in there, man. It's all in there." Every session, he paints a good picture of the kind of the milieu that Sonny was in, and talks a lot about the other musicians. It's a read, man. It's really enjoyable. It's not meant for the average casual music listener, but thank you to Aiden for giving us that. Sonny deserves it,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And man, the list of musicians you've played with is just so impressive. Sonny Rollins, Jim Hall, Ron Carter, Bobby Hutcherson, Lou Donaldson, Dr. Lonnie Smith, Fathead Newman, Joshua Redman, Brad Meldau, Diana Krall, Lee Konitz, Jimmy Cobb, Bill Charlap, Larry Goldings, of course, and Sullivan Fortner. I saw Sullivan a couple weeks ago at the Vanguard, and he just blew me away. That guy, he's incredible. I'm curious, what a great list of folks you've been able to collaborate with. Who is someone who is still playing today that you've not had a chance to play with, that you would love to get that call and say, "Oh yeah, man, I want to play with that person"?
Wow, there's a lot of people. I mean, and not, some of them are even younger than me, maybe. So yeah, there's a lot of people that are doing exciting things. As for the elders, I mean, of course, just to get to play one tune with Herbie Hancock, just to experience that, or I've been super lucky though. I've never had that. I was always just kind of so blown away by who I was getting to play with. I never developed that list of, I wish I'd love, how do I get this gig? I was just, trying to hang on with the people that I was playing with, of course. But I've been super lucky. I mean, but there's a lot of cool people doing exciting things. You just kind of want to, of course, go towards the thing that attracts you.
Yeah. Do you get out much there in New York to see music?
I do.
I know you're really busy with your schedule. I was looking at your calendar, and man, you're playing a lot. But do you get out as a listener much?
When I'm home in New York, I mean, I try to get out. I'm better about going out to hear people play than about checking out records. I don't really have, I'm not good about that. So that's what I try to get to know with some of the younger players, and of course, go see the people that I go see while I can, of course. I do try to get out and hear some stuff. I don't go everywhere, but there's a few spots, like I don't live far from the Vanguard, so I'll go down to the Vanguard and see what's happening there. So
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's
And one of my absolute favorites is about to do a run there. Bill Frisell. Have you worked ever with Bill?
I've never played with him, but I've seen him around
Yeah.
many years, and he's the nicest guy. Super, super
Yeah,
nice.
one of my favorite people in the world. He's
Very creative guy, man. Very
yeah,
creative.
yeah.
Like, no one sounds like him. It's really, really unique.
So if you could bring someone back from the dead, for an hour to play with.
Well, there's some people that I mean, yeah, I would have loved to play with Elvin and
Mhm.
somebody like that. Some of the drummers I never got to play with: Billy Higgins, Blakey,
Mhm.
Williams, and of course McCoy. But I
Yeah.
really, like I say, I just feel so. All these people were like, people from stories, like
Right.
great novels and stuff. So getting to meet some of them and having some connection to, like some connection to Wes Montgomery through Melvin Ryan and through Jimmy Cobb, or some connection to Grant Green through Lou Donaldson and people like that. So I feel very, I can be regretful of, I never got to this, but I feel very lucky to be as close to it as I have been, even through some other person. But that person was, like
Yeah.
that meant so much. Be able to play with Bobby Hutcherson was huge, because that was somebody I was just idolizing for a long time, and going to see him play religiously since the early '90s. Really, I would always catch him. So when I got to play with him, that was
Yeah.
really a blessing.
Right on. When I asked Larry Goldings that same question, he said, "Oh, definitely Miles, but he would probably fire me, so it probably wouldn't work out."
Right.
Goldings. Speaking of Goldings, I just want to ask you a question about Larry. He's such a funny guy. He's got that alter ego, and he's just so clever. And I just wonder, traveling and gigging with him as you have done for many years, and you've known him since you guys were kids. How does that sense of humor show up a lot? Is he a guy who is it a lot of spontaneity, or how does his humor come out?
Yeah, he's funny. We've all been hanging for many years, and he was funny to me, before the world knew he was funny. So
Yeah.
he was just like channels for him to like express that side. It's also creative, and he can use music with it so skillfully. So yeah, but a lot of times when I see Larry, it's not so much in like a social, like we don't even live in the same city, so I only see him when we're working, kind of. And part of that is social, but a lot of it is just like we're just trying to get to the next gig. So
Right.
if we're hanging out on a train and everyone's just kind of off and on sleeping, it's really, he's more funny on the gig, because he's saving his humor
Right.
for the gig, and we're not, we hang, but we're also tired and saving our energy for the gig. So that's where we get to really have fun. And but yeah, no, he's one of my oldest friends, and yeah, I'm glad we've been getting the chance to work together so much in the last really 10 years. We've been kind of going to Europe pretty steadily every, couple times a year, and recently starting to play in the States more. So
Yeah.
it's great. It's amazing that we can still do it after 30, some odd years, 33 years of playing together now. It's crazy. So
That's great, man. That's great. And now that I've had Larry on the show, and you, I need to do the trifecta and get Bill. I have to figure out a way to get Bill on here.
absolutely.
Let me ask you about something that has been bothering me a little bit, which is I can't find any of your stuff on vinyl.
Vinyl. Oh yeah. Wow.
Let's talk about the vinyl versus CD versus streaming thing, if you don't mind. What are your attitudes towards that in general?
Well, my attitude towards everything being streamed is, I can't, I used to steal stuff. I went to the library and took out records and taped them onto cassette. So I'm guilty of the same thing, and not even paying 99 cents for a song or something. So I mean, I understand. I mean, I did buy a lot of records. I bought cassettes. I bought whatever. I bought CDs. You know, of course, I try to support the music, and I like to be supported. But it's changed. You know, I started recording a lot during the CD era when people were making CDs, and there were labels producing CDs. So I'm lucky to have caught the tail end of that because I got on a lot of dates. You know, a lot of them were crisscross, but other labels and lots of people were recording. So that was a good thing. People are recording now, but they're kind of self-funded or they start their own label. And, you know, the paradigm always has to change. And artists that are savvy and can stay on top of it and market their own stuff are going to be ahead of it. But in a way, it's like jazz takes up such a small, you know, even just to get any kind of attention is difficult. So I kind of cringe when I think about Spotify and then how little, I mean, how much more they could be paying out, because if they didn't have the artists, what would they be selling? But I guess I'm just like, disgusting. At the same time, like, I'm lucky to make some CDs, and CDs, if you bring them on the road with you, you sell them to some people because they still want some kind of memento or some kind of something. Still have CD players if they're old enough, and that's great. Then you sell your CDs, and that's your lunch money for the road. You know, that it serves some purpose. You know.
Yeah.
But you know, I don't know. I've never been one. I didn't ever have a big record contract that I lost because the record company. So I can't say I've been lifted up by that so much as, or taken down by it. So, you know, I think it's weird when the playing field is so level that everyone's CDs is out there together. At the same time, like, you just have to, you know, some impresario has to sign you. That was how it was back in the day. So I'm sure we missed out on a lot of great music because, you know, John Hammond didn't want to sign so-and-so because he had so-and-so instead. You know, that's not good, you know, because that person might have been able to make a contribution also. So it's tricky, you know.
I actually have a business idea for you. If you,
for me. Oh boy. Okay.
So most of the people who, at least I know, who are music lovers, they tend to either listen on vinyl or streaming. I don't play CDs, and I'm sure some people do, but I think that it's becoming a little bit of a thing of the past. I think the vinyl thing, the resurgence, is happening because people miss that tangible thing that you know, it slows you down. You have to lift that needle up, and it helps you to really sit down and listen. Streaming
sound better.
Yeah. And streaming is just so convenient. You can't get away from it. But it's more of it's just kind of on, or it's in the car, as opposed to really sitting down to listen to a record. But you you mentioned Spotify. I mean, Spotify and iTunes and all those things are not doing any favors to people like you. You're not making, what are you making, pennies? You know, you can't you're nothing. So here's what I think you should do. Here's my business idea.
Okay.
I think if
should buy a bunch of wax.
No. If you plastic. If you and about, I don't know, 15 other guys, 15 or 20 folks, jazz folks, got together and created basically a streaming service club. So that people like me, I don't want to pay, I don't want to listen on Spotify, but sometimes I do because it's just so convenient. But I would gladly pay $10 a month, say, to have at my disposal, have a streaming service of just people like yourself, you know, so that if I'm in the car, I'm on the go, I'm on my phone, I'm on a walk, I can go to your app, you know, and I got an option of 20 different artists, maybe stuff I love, and you got 5 or 6. I mean, you have so many records, you have a bunch of records up there, and then the money goes straight to you. It doesn't go.
You're talking about the content is our old records, things that are already available.
Yes. But see, it's the convenience of being able to listen to them,
right,
with your phone or in the car, just like that, with no problem. That's the attraction to that stuff. But you're not making, you know, it's not fair to artists because you're not making any money on that. You're getting promoted to some extent, sure.
Well, that's the thing. Those people, if you have a CD, whether they click on it to listen to it or whatever, at least Spotify is, if you're on some playlist or something, that's Spotify advertising telling the world that you still exist and are still making music. So is that for something? I think so, because that's what people are looking to see, who's still making music. So if you want to preach to the choir in a sense and have a collective, like it's like a co-op for food. Come live in the neighborhood, come shop here. We'll take care of it. We'll sit.
Yeah.
But I think with a lot of it, it's cool because you could reach out to your people through whatever social.
And rather than pay per song, pay per song and try to keep track of that, make it simple. Your subscribers just pay a monthly fee of $10 or whatever. But man, you get 1,000 people, and all of a sudden you got 10 grand of income coming in. You know.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah, that's pretty cool. But also, I think with everything, it comes down to content. Why would you go to our thing except just to support us instead of going on Spotify when you're already on Spotify?
Well, because I would say because there's a lot of people like myself who have negative feelings about Spotify, you know, because we know they're not fair to the artists. Artists aren't making, I mean, I've got a bunch of music on Spotify. I never even dreamed of making any money. It's just a way for me to get music out there easily. But someone who has a lot of listeners like yourself, sure, it may not be Beyonce, but you worldwide, man, you've got plenty of people. And if you do a co-op with a bunch of folks like yourself, I mean, you could end up with 10,000 subscribers worldwide pretty easily, and you charge them $10 a month or even $5 a month. You got a lot of bread coming your way each month, and it's coming straight to you.
But I think you maybe have to offer them new content also, which was like here's the last gig that we did or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
It would be an investment in really, for lack of a better word, disseminating your music out into the world, and really keeping an active eye on what's being sold. And I mean that's an interesting idea. I like the idea that we're taking it back. It's such a small thing, and it gets lost in Spotify, and they don't pay anything to anyone anyway.
Right. Yeah.
But,
Some to think about, man. It's taking the
collective,
Yeah, it's taking the technology, and instead of the negative thing that's done, using that to help you. Anyway, something to think about, man. I hope you think about it, and I'd be happy to help in any way I could.
You're a guitar player. What's your?
Yeah, I'm a recently retired university professor at Texas A&M University down here in College Station, Texas. But I'm also a painter and singer-songwriter, and a dad, and a lot of other things. But yeah, my music I have a real passion for it. But I would hate to try to make a living doing it. Let me put it that way. But I'm a creative guy who is, my motto is always be creating, and so I'm writing songs constantly, and kind of in the tradition of Bob Dylan, if I had to, name a name. But man, I played in several bands and love. I play out quite a bit, play gigs. I'm the guy at the coffee shop over there in the corner with the acoustic guitar, kind of guy.
Where's College Station, Texas? What part of Texas is that?
Well, we're sort of between Austin and Houston.
Okay.
And it's like 105 degrees right now. It's brutal. I know it's hot in New York too. Hey man, I'm respectful of your time, and we've already gone quite a bit. Can we finish maybe with a kind of a lightning round? Let me just throw some things at you, and the idea here is short answer. You don't have to answer. You can answer longer if you want to, but kind of the idea is just short answer here. What do you listen to right now?
Wow, what am I listening to right now? Everything from Satie. I love his music, to going back to Miles and Coltrane, Sonny Rollins, Herb Springs, Hank Jones, Kenny Burrell, Wes Montgomery, anything. I mean, I just kind of like go, I don't necessarily have like a study of, I need to sit down and, I just kind of go with wherever. And I mean, I listen to all the greats. And people that just inspire. If I want to learn a song, I'll look up people that do it, so.
Lovely. Yeah. Favorite venue to watch music as opposed to playing?
To watch music, I would say the Vanguard. Yeah.
And favorite place to play?
I would also say the Village Vanguard or Smoke. Great. Now the Smoke is great. places that give you, multiple nights. Vanguard is still the last 6-night gig, so
Yeah, I love it.
play over the course of a week.
Yeah.
Then,
I first went to the Vanguard in the late '80s. I saw Joe Lovano with the Meldau Orchestra. That was amazing. And I'm coming back up in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to catch him with Marilyn Crispell over there. And at Smoke is Jonathan. Uh, I'm blanking. Jonathan Blake. His Pentad thing with Emmanuel Wilkins and Joel Ross. That's at Smoke coming up in a couple of weeks. Anyway, let's see. Most memorable show you've attended, and I know there's so many, but just what comes to mind?
Bobby Hutcherson at the Vanguard, '95.
Wow.
Yeah, around that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's say for the next month you can only listen to one record. For whatever reason, it's just a little game here. You get to pick one record, and that's the only record you can listen to for the next month. What do you pick?
I mean, that's a
very Sophie's choice.
That's tough because it really, whatever pops in my head, I can listen to that for a month, no problem. Love Supreme, great, okay,
Okay, yeah.
Any record by that group, any record by Miles's group, I'd love to really get into like Water Babies, Miles, some of those Miles records I don't know as well.
Okay.
But
yeah, cool. Yeah. And in short answer, when someone asks you why do you pretty much exclusively play that Zeidler archtop as opposed to so many other possible guitars you could be playing, what's your kind of short answer to that?
Well, I love this guitar. I like the way it feels. I like the way it sounds. It's a challenge to play. I'm just not one of those guitar players that needs to have one of every type of guitar, and really the Zeidler gives me what I want in an instrument, which is just the resonance and evenness through the registers, and I'm just trying to deal with the music. I don't want to, the instrument. Yeah, it's just a distraction to be like, well, this guitar has this, but this guitar has this, and I don't want to have my head in the gear. I want to have my head in the music if I can. This instrument, it can play anything that I can play. That's for sure. A lot more than I can't play. So.
And wasn't Jim Hall that way? Didn't he pretty much have one guitar that he just played mainly?
He did have that Gibson 175, and then he got a Sadowski, and he was pretty faithful to that. And then he had different versions of the Sadowski.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm sorry. He did have a Taquisto. After he played that for a long time. Then Sadowski made him, and he played all those beautiful guitars too. So, but that was kind of like Sadowski made him one like his Taquisto to a degree. So that was the model still. So I guess that was his real baby.
Yeah. Are you much of a reader? Do you read much?
Music or talking about books?
Books.
Okay. I don't as much as I used to. I can only really read when I'm on the road now, and that's when I can have time to do it. When I'm home, I'm also a dad. I have 2 kids, so sitting down to read is. Yeah. But sometimes by the time I sit down, I'm too tired to read. Mm-hmm. So I'm not reading like I used to. And sometimes on the road, I'll get into a good book. But I love Paul Auster's novels and people like that. But I'll read biographies too and just different things.
Yeah. Yeah, right on. What might surprise people about you, even people who know you at least casually, and what can you imagine them saying, I didn't know that about Peter?
No, I don't know what surprises anybody anymore.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you have a guilty pleasure or something. I don't know. If not, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I run. I'm going to try to run a marathon.
No kidding.
I've done a couple of them because I was able to raise money for this muscular dystrophy group that raises money for research about the disease. My older son has muscular dystrophy, so I'm no marathon runner, but I was able to get a spot in there to raise money for that. So I don't know if that would surprise anybody about me, but not so much that I'm a runner, but that my son has muscular dystrophy, and it's part of my life. But I don't know.
Okay. What pisses you off?
I try not to let anything really piss me off. I mean, I have Yeah, it's almost like something pisses you off. It's not a surprise. And
Uh-huh.
it's on you. You know, you shouldn't be pissed off by something. I mean, I definitely feel like, you know, this is a huge thing. It's just kind of like the world technology as it relates to music and in general. It's like it cuts out a lot of the human experience, you know. And I think that like people are so quick to jump on technology and the ease of doing things, and you can do this with the push of a button. That the act of like doing things together as humans, like for example, a drum circle or a vocal choir or a jazz group or any kind of group where people play together and have to deal with their egos in terms of what they're contributing, but being subjugating it to make the whole something larger. I just think that like technology has gone to a place where those kind of things aren't valued like they should be. But
Yeah.
this is like, you know, if you're going to be bugged about that, it's like, you know,
Yeah.
it's just like that's just the way things go. People, you know, and it's like people don't churn their own butter anymore or wash their clothes, you know, and it's like so it's going to happen. So
Yeah.
that's the danger with things becoming easier in society is that we don't even we lose sight of like what are the more difficult things that require, you know, like I'm not saying it, you know, singing in a choir or playing in jazz is more difficult than anything else, but it's a certain part of it when it happens on a high level. It's because people are doing something that's important for humans to do, which is like get together and make something, you know. So
Yeah.
that's I think it's so much based on like how you can manipulate technology and stuff like that. But,
Mm-hmm.
which is hey, that's okay too. You know, it's all you know. You can do that to make a lot of good in the world too. So I mean, it's you know. But I can't say anything. I just do get pissed off if I see that those qualities completely being ignored. You know,
Right.
like that makes me concerned.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot
Cool.
of it concerning.
Well,
But
man, I really appreciate you taking this time, and I've already taken too much of your time. I just have one more question for you. You
that,
know, you mentioned that you know a lot of the elders are passing away, and they're getting up there in years. We've lost quite a few people in the last few years, and you know, as I'm sort of approaching 70, I've been thinking about it more and more, and I've lost quite a lot of people in my life, and it always interests me to just see how other people think about that, and just in terms of do you have any concept or any ideas of or any beliefs about what might happen after we die, or do you think that's pretty much just it? Is it we have 60, 70, 80 years and we're done, or do you have some sort of concept of a life after death?
I'm really concerning myself with my life before death. You
Amen,
know,
brother.
like
Amen.
just like you say, like where you know you put a number out there like 67, or I'm going to be 56 in a couple of months, or in a couple of weeks. Like, well, you know, those are just numbers, and you feel the way you feel, of course. But there is the reality of like, wow, you know, what's important to me. I got to focus on the things that are important now, and you know, try to keep you know get your head on straight about you know what you need to put your energy to, and that energy is something that's like gets diluted over the years. We're not no one's exempt from you know uh, having a just a fall in their you know strength and whatever it is, vision, hearing, you know, balance, mental health, or you know, any of these things can decline. So we're just at the age where we're dealing with like, wow, something's going to get us eventually. So it's really like I have to say, I don't think about after. I think about doing what I can do now. So
Beautiful, man. No, I
I have
love
to
it.
say it doesn't enter into my equations, you know.
I love that answer. One of my favorite answers to that question. I don't remember who said it, but yeah, I know what happens after we die. A lot of people are going to miss us.
Yeah, well,
And that's all we really know. Well, man, I really appreciate you taking this time. I feel like we didn't didn't ask you enough about your music, but I'm a big fan, and in the show notes to this episode, I will definitely put links up there and encourage people to check you out both live and on your recordings. And I hope that I can catch you sometime down the road. Again, I really appreciate this, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. My pleasure. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.